then Matt and Sean can take over for a while
Hello.
because they've been playing Citizen Sleeper.
We certainly have.
Citizen No Sleeper, if
More
Matt's
like.
anything to go by.
Yeah,
Yeah. Good morning, Matt.
So
coming
this,
up. I'll let Sean do it. So this is the game Sean was so excited about, and
yeah, I've been buzzing about this for a long time.
Is it
So
shit?
this was like, because this was announced at the PC gaming show at E3 last year, which
great conference.
which is a great conference. I think, yeah, because we talked about it, didn't we? And we're like, oh no, to be fair, Citizen Sleeper actually looked really good. And yeah, and then I think I'm allowed to say now, so earlier this year, as part of the closed beta for it. And I was just like, fuck, this is brilliant. I mean, obviously it was a closed beta, there's, issues with it and stuff, but just generally speaking, like the writing and stuff, I was like, fuck, I'm so sold on this. And then it was announced it was coming to Game Pass, and it was like, brilliant, I don't have to like shout at people to buy it. Like, if most people I know can just play it without spending any more money. It's a game where you play as a sleeper, so it's set in the far future, and you're on this space station, and basically you are someone who, so in this future, like, true AI has been outlawed, right? And because it's considered like too dangerous. However, one loophole around this is that people can have their consciousness like digitized, right, and transferred to machines. In your case, you've signed, so you like at some point in the past you were a normal human being who was paid to have their consciousness digitized, and then basically you get put in like cryo sleep, and then your brain effectively is put into like a synthetic body, which can then go out into the universe and do like really dangerous, horrible work, right? But the idea is it's sold to you as like, oh well, like, someone else will just go off with your brain, do a load of stuff, and then one day you wake up and you've got a load of money for your time, except in the game, so you're the one in the artificial body, and you've escaped because the way that these artificial bodies, with these sort of digitized consciousnesses are treated is absolutely appalling, and they're basically being abused. So you've escaped, and you arrive at this station, and you essentially, because you're just this copy of a person, right? You have no legal rights, right? You're not legally like recognized as a person. You're technically like corporate property, right? And it has gone missing. So although you've arrived on this station, you're trying to like carve out a life for yourself, like essentially as like like a refugee. You're also like, you're being hunted, right? Because this corporation believes you belong to them, and you need to be brought in. And like the other issue is that to disincentivize you from escaping, there's this sort of medicine, this sort of chemical that you need on like a regular basis, or else your body starts falling apart. So it's kind of like there's a lot of like Blade
Bit
Runner
like that
in it.
Doctor Dope game. What is that? What's it called?
What, Haze?
Hive or something. Haze. Yeah. It sounds like something about Haze.
Well, I was going to say, because it's very Blade Runner, but if you were the replicant, right? And it specifically sort of goes to that because it's no secret that you are being hunted, and eventually there's a bounty hunter that comes after you, and it's very much like, oh yeah, like how would Deckard from Blade Runner appear to you if you were the replicant, right? He's a fucking dick. Like it's and so basically, it's all about you trying to, like I say, sort of carve out a life for yourself on this station, and sort of obviously as the story progresses, it sort of becomes clear there are sort of potential sort of ways out of your current situation. But the way it plays out, sort of moment to moment, it is quite Disco Elysium, but it's much more like you're not controlling an avatar walking around a space. It's all sort of interface based. So you're kind of scrolling up and down the station. There's sort of different sort of locations you just sort of click on, and that's how you sort of travel around. But it's every day in the game you wake up and you are given like a set of dice are rolled for you, right? So you'll have like 2 3s, a 5 and a 1 or whatever, and then you can spend those on tasks that you can do on any given day. So if you get like a 6, that's like a guaranteed success at doing something, whether it's like like there's a lot of like gig work, right? So it's like you might get a shift at like a bar or helping weld a ship together or whatever. And yeah, you can do well at those things, or you can fail them. You get paid accordingly, or you can hurt yourself, or whatever. But what's really smart is that as your body starts to fail you, because like if you're not keeping on top of getting hold of this medicine, which like you have to get through like black market connections and stuff, as your condition drops, you get fewer dices each day. Dice. So so it's like you're trying to keep on top of like keeping yourself in top condition, but also because you've got a limited supply of this medicine, you're sort of thinking, well, maybe I'll let my body die a bit, and then when I get to like 3 dice, that's probably when I should use the medicine again. Like you're trying to eke it out, right?
And it's like a takeaway. Like, let's just kill my body just enough so that I'm not dead.
Yeah.
But just so that I'm enjoying life.
And it's like it's absolutely fascinating. Like it's the struggle initially is like a constant thing, right? You're constantly sort of having to make decisions, like because you're meeting characters and they might need things from you. They might need help with stuff, and they might not necessarily be things that will pay you money, right? So you're sort of thinking, right, well, I know this guy like wants my help, like hacking this server or whatever, but also I'm fucking skint and I'm starving and I need my medicine. So you day by day you're making these decisions like, right, well, I'll spend like my good dice on the stuff I really need to do, and then the shit dice on maybe things I'm not so fussed about. And yeah, so you're constantly making those decisions. That kind of levels out as the game goes on, which I think works, because on the one hand you're sort of thinking like, oh well, this isn't really a story about like struggling or surviving anymore. I'm all right. But then by that point you've got so many story threads to pick through that you kind of like, well, good, because I'm enjoying just sort of meeting these characters and doing stuff for them and seeing how all these plot threads sort of play out. That it's by that point you're kind of thinking, well, yeah, I'm quite happy to not have not be worrying constantly about surviving day to day.
This is what I wanted to ask you. Sorry.
So I was saying I was actually stressing about a condition of of myself and energy and trying to get food until probably like the first 80% of the game. For me, it didn't seem to calm down. The tension was always there about okay, well, I because also the lower your condition goes, like the less dice you have the next day. And so if you go down to like, you start with 100%, you have all 5 dice, after a couple of days or every day, some of your condition deteriorates, and then you have less dice the next day and the next day. And I'm like, well, I don't want to start a day with just 2 dice, because that's really, I want, I can't wait another few cycles to do this thing. Maybe the thing I need to do it in the next 2 or 3 cycles. So I have to I was constantly stressing about trying to get the medicine, trying to making sure I have enough food, because as well as condition, which determines how many dice you have, you also have an energy bar. And when your energy goes right down, that then means that your condition deteriorates twice as fast. So you're then just constantly topping up with food to make sure that's filled up, as well as trying to complete tasks within a certain time frame. So I thought that tension was fantastic. I mean, it kept on for me. I would say 8% of the way through the game. It was only really the last 20% or so where I felt comfortable, had enough money, wasn't too fussed about the medicine because I had enough saved. But that was the constant tension, which I thought was really a fantastic part of the game.
Can I just ask though, can you fail this? Like, can it be all over?
No, which is
okay.
Which is weird, because because this is it, because I sort of tested this because I wasn't sure.
I was too scared to test it. I never. I never got my condition down to the lowest. Energy can get, so you start off like 4 and it goes down to starving. When you're starving, that's when your condition, the other bar, goes down twice as fast. I would get down to starving and buy some food and I'll be fine. But the main one, which determines the amount of dice, I never got that down to like 1 dice because I was too scared about what would happen. So you did.
This is what I was wondering, because I've got this and I started playing it, and then I just thought, how stressful is this game going to be? Because it's like,
there's definitely moments that are pretty stressful. Overall I found this like it's too interesting to let the stress put you off. Basically, like it's too, like, the characters are too vibrant and the world's too interesting to, like, for that to put you off. I should say, like, so you can't die, but what happens when your condition gets to 0 is not good. Like, it's not a fun thing. I won't spoil it beyond that, but yeah, there's
but there's a way back, right?
There's a way back, and it's because, like, from basically, like, as soon as you start the game, it holds this thing over the, like, like I've said, like, you're being hunted, right? There's a bounty hunter that comes after you, and again, that's really sort of framed as like it kind of implies, like, you need to have reached one of the endings by the time this happens, whereas that's not really the case. And I
was so stressed about that when I saw,
like,
because as well as dice, there's also these clocks. Now, I haven't played any tabletop RPGs, so maybe this is quite common, but you have, like, various clocks whereby you might complete tasks and it will gradually fill up, light up these clocks until you get to the end and you've completed that task. They're also kind of like bad clocks whereby you fail with things enough times that might then mean, the ship leaves, or you can't meet someone, or you miss out on some opportunity. There's loads of things where you're trying to juggle in between making sure you have dice rolls that satisfy and fill up the good clock, and making sure you don't fuck up enough, so you kind of you miss out on stuff by filling kind of the fail clock or whatever. So, but I found that there was loads of tension around that the whole time.
Yeah, totally. Because and, like, as you say, because there are situations where you have to make choices. Like, I was watching an interview, the one Gareth Damien Martin did with Austin Walker. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it.
I watched a bit, yeah. Ludo Narra.
Yeah, Ludo Narra, come on, yeah. And, like, Gareth was talking about, like, they were saying that, like, because it's interesting because there's loads of dialogue choices in this game, but the dialogue choices aren't a big deal in terms of, or they're not usually a big deal in terms of how the story plays out, right? And Gareth was saying, like, that's something they've done on purpose because, broadly speaking, in life, like, the big choices you make aren't, like, the wording of the things you say, it's the things you choose to do or choose not to do. And they were saying, like, it's more about those choices you make between, like, self-preservation and helping your friends out, which I think does work, because there are situations that, like, you can sort of neglect, and things that might not play out necessarily the way you want them to because you were either too busy focusing on something else or just trying to keep yourself alive. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was never that stressful. And as I say, you kind of, as you get towards the end, again, the way the endings work is unusual, but done on purpose. And I think it's worth explaining because, again, I think it's something people will stress about, because there's loads of different endings. But again, Gareth has said, like, they want it to be respectful of players' time. So I don't think there's any endings where it's like, that's it. Like, forget it. Like, you can either go back to a previous save, make a different decision, and things can continue if you want to see the other endings.
They're all meaningful.
Yeah, they're all meaningful. And it's...
So happy about it.
Go on, sorry, Matt.
I'm so happy about that because I've said it loads in the past where, say Breath of the Wild, where you finish that game and it takes you back before the end boss. I've always thought, like, couldn't there be something afterwards where people are saying, oh, thank you for doing this, whatever. Some games... I'm stressing when it gets to the end, I'm like, and they might say, hey, you better do what you need to do now because you're not going to come back. And I'm like, okay, well, guess once I finish this, that's it. Some games, you finish the game and it takes you back just before that final boss or whatever. But this game, you can see credits, you can finish a story thread. It will take you back, but there's also the kind of like a couple of cutscenes afterwards, so it does kind of follow on, and then it still enables you to explore or do more, which I thought was that's like the perfect way to do this, I think. So
yeah, totally.
There's something that reflects what you've achieved in the story, but you can still go around and do other stuff. It's not the end. I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah.
So how long is a playthrough roughly? Like, how long does it take to get through?
Well, because so I now realise that what I did was quite weird. So I played it through on Switch first, and then, like, got an ending and kind of, like, it felt right. So I was like, right, I'm going to stop there. And I thought, I want to try the Xbox version just out of interest. The Xbox version runs a lot better, I have to say. The Switch version is fine. Like, it's, for the type of game it is, like, it doesn't really matter, but performance is a bit choppy. The interface is bad on both, I should say. The controller interface in general could do with some work. It's sometimes a bit fiddly in terms of selecting stuff. But yeah, so I was like, no, I'm just going to start again on the Xbox, and I am glad I did, because I spotted things that I'd completely missed on my first run on the Switch. Things which, in hindsight, I could have just loaded up the Switch version again, and if I just sort of looked at old areas again and gone, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't actually fully explored that or done this, I could have actually picked those threads up. So there wasn't really any need for me to restart, but I did, and then did like another full run. I mean, I think you're probably looking at, about 10, 15 hours, Matt? Depending on how quickly, like, you can get an ending sort of relatively quickly, and then it's kind of up to you if you want to continue exploring it or not. So
for me, it definitely took over 10 hours, but everyone I've heard talk about it, they're all like, 6 to 8 hours. I mean, I don't know if like the Xbox kind of like the counter on the console is accurate. I mean, I definitely had it on pause for bits, but I think mine now is like 18 hours, so I'm fairly sure it counts everything. But even when I felt like I didn't have it on pause for a long time, it's still over 10 hours. But yeah, I've heard 6 to 8, James, and you do things, get through games pretty quickly, so. I'm not expecting it for you to take.
Gamer. Is that James?
He is a pro gamer.
He's a pro gamer.
It's like the pacing of it is just fascinating, because it's one of those games that does that thing really well of like, even though this isn't like explicit within the game, it's like in your head you're like, right, I've got like my long-term objectives, I've got like my medium-term ones, and then I've got my short-term ones, right? So you might be like, oh, like I've been told I need to do something really important that's on this other area of the space station, but I can't get there yet. And then it's like, okay, so my medium-term goal is to like get to this next area, and then there's like a ferry you have to take. It's like, shit, that's really expensive. So then you find yourself like, so you think, right, well, I'll do some stuff I can, like some short-term stuff I can do now, and then someone's like, oh, hey, I also need you to go to this next area of the map, but I can get you a discount on the ferry, and you're like, fuck, right, of course, and then that feeds into other things you're trying to do. So like, you reach a point in the game fairly quickly where you might have like 10 different like, quests going at one point, and you can view them all on a list on the left hand side, and you can choose which ones you want to track, which ones you want to prioritize. But I don't know. I don't know if you were the same. I never felt daunted by that, because I always felt like I had an idea of what I wanted to prioritize, and eventually I was able to mop up pretty much everything. So it wasn't like, oh fuck, there's like too much going on, like I'm really stressed or anything. Like it was all right.
I wasn't stressed. I mean, again, for someone who doesn't play these kinds of games, I've never really played a game like it, or at least maybe because it's so explicit with like the die roll and whatnot. Obviously, I've played games like Disco Elysium, which is probably doing this in the background to shield me from that. But this isn't really a game type I've played before, and there was. At the beginning, there's an awful lot of kind of walls of text to explain the various kind of mechanics and this and that. And I'm so glad. At the time, I took pictures of everything on screen, and I'm so glad I looked at them loads. And I was like, okay, so what does condition really mean, and how does a food affect a condition? I was constantly going back to the pictures I took of the tutorial at the beginning. But in terms of like the task list, no, I never felt truly overwhelmed, because, but although I kind of almost wanted to take like a second task list of myself. Okay, well, these are all the tasks, and you can, as Sean just said, you can track where you want. But I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on this, and actually, them 5 or 6 I'm not bothering with. I'm just going to do this for now. There's an awful lot to kind of do, and this is why on the so I started playing this on the Friday. I basically did Friday night, Saturday night, and a bit of Sunday. And the Friday and Saturday night, I was up to like 3 in the morning.
I saw you on there all day on Sunday. Every time I turned my Xbox, you were playing.
Yeah. Mostly paused. But basically, I was up so late because you do a cycle, and that could, they're often quite short, but you're always kind of like, okay, and this thing's going to complete in like 3 cycles, so I'll do 3 cycles. Oh no, something else is happening now. So there's always like something else happening, and I felt like I was getting through cycles really quickly because I was desperate to see what happens next, and I knew, well, I need to grow this thing, and that takes 5 cycles. I'm waiting for this thing to arrive, and that takes 3 cycles. So it was constantly kind of making you get excited for the next one, and next one. That's why it's quite hard, actually, I think, to turn this game off once you're really in the flow, because there's always something about to happen, or you're about to unlock something, or you're about to see the end of this quest, or someone's going to come back to a location. And in terms of...
Is it good, though, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's excellent. I think it's really, really good. At the start, I was overwhelmed, as I said, and it felt a bit alien to me. But by the end, I mean, well, not even just by the end. Halfway through, I was like, okay, I really love this game. I want to see more. But just the stories and the characters are absolutely amazing. The sense of atmosphere, even very early on, is excellent. Not just kind of the way the visuals are, like the illustrations of the characters you meet, the writing. Pretty much instantly, you kind of there's a vibe about these various characters, and then just like seeing their stories go through to the end. I mean, like one of them, I had tears in my eyes at the end of it.
I think it was we talked about this, didn't we? It was the same ending, just like fucking destroyed both of us in a good way. But yeah,
absolutely stunning writing, and like there's so many characters which are brilliant in different ways, and yeah, there's multiple different endings. Only one of them I was like, okay, that's fine, but all the others were brilliant and fascinating in different ways. And I after finishing this, I kind of didn't want to leave the location. I want to be in this world more. I want to, what other like books or movies or TV shows or anything is anything like this, because I want to see and experience more. I mean, like some of the characters I love. There's a guy you meet called Emphis who's running like street food stall,
God, and when you find out like what his whole backstory is,
but yeah, like his text, a lot of it is like describing him cooking like mushrooms, and he can ask you to go out and get mushrooms, and even it's like you can almost like taste like the food he's is serving you, because also you as your consciousness has been like copy and pasted from you as a person. You're not really kind of experiencing emotions. You're experiencing kind of like a computerized version of an emotion. So there's text saying, I can feel like the hot food going down my throat, or this looks nice, or that, but you as a character, no, you can't fully 100% taste or or feel the emotions around the food. But the way like the food is described, I'm getting hungry listening to Emphis talk about his food stall and why he's doing it, and his history and leading up. I thought he was amazing.
Is it voice acted?
It's not, and I mean I wasn't expecting it to be, but like the first trailer they put out has all, obviously it's only like a 1 minute long trailer that has voice acting in it, and it does make like the actors they use for that trailer are brilliant. Like, and it was having heard that trailer allowed me to sort of have an idea of what the characters were supposed to sound like, and it does make me wish like that this would maybe get the Disco Elysium treatment if they could go back and add voice acting. Like 100%, I'd do another run.
That's such a rare thing for someone to do. I think
exactly.
Disco Elysium is like one off with that. I think
exactly, because that was such a huge success. Whereas this was literally made by more or less by one person.
Yeah, I've seen that trailer, so I'm going to go back after this and watch that, because that'd be fascinating. But I think like a good book, everyone reading a book would have like their version of the character in their mind, or how they sound, how they act, and I think I like it for that. But yeah, there's like there's a father and daughter called Lem and Mina, and their story is absolutely amazing. He's like a single dad trying to have a better life for them. There's Rico you meet, who's like fascinated with a certain part of the eye, which is the name of the space station. Ethan, who's like an idealist trying to fix the world in his own way. There are so many fantastic characters, and there are also, as I said earlier, there are like fail states and these like kind of clocks where if you fuck up enough you kind of fail. So there were a few quest lines that just like I just failed. So there's probably other stories or other endings I've missed which are just as good as the ones I experienced. But yeah, I think it's an absolutely fantastic game. I absolutely love it, and still thinking about it a day or so later, and now trying to mop up a podcast about it, seeing, I think it's good for a spoiler cast. And I watched a bit of that interview with the creator, Sean, as you mentioned, for Ludo Narracon, whatever it's called. Yeah, absolutely fantastic game.
I warned.
Sounds like I need to give it a go.
Yeah, man. Like I warned New earlier today. I was like, look, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I've been playing this game and I can't stop fucking thinking about it. So at some point, there's just going to be like half an hour where I'm just going to fucking say a load of shit about it, and then that'll be it. I'll be done. But it's just, like when you have that feeling where it's like this world is just like in my head now, and I'm like, and I can't stop thinking about it.
I want more from.
I was gonna say, like, I really hope they, so Gareth's previous game was In Other Waters, which I really liked, but I did eventually bounce off. I'll probably go back to it now, but this is like, I really hope they do something else in this world. It doesn't have to be the same characters, but it's so brilliantly fleshed out for such a relatively short game. like the backstory, the history of like not just the characters but the station itself and the political struggles, like all the the way power has transferred between factions over time and stuff, and how that plays out and how that affects people's lives decades later. Again, very Disco Elysium, but it does it in its own way and yeah, really interestingly.
Just for the end, I do want to kind of talk about some of the negatives. So basically,
yes.
As Sean mentioned earlier, the UI, that there's so much they're trying to do, but it just doesn't work. I think this would be a way more enjoyable, and I think it's a fantastic game anyway. But on with a mouse probably or touchpad, iPad,
touch screen, would be.
There were loads of nodes around like the way you're traversing, so you're basically using the controller on the D-pad or stick to move from node. But sometimes there can be one there, and you press right, and I'm like, no, it's not going to that one; it's going to some other thing. It feels quite buggy in that regard. I've seen like typos and some of the text, and the UI is just, there's a lot of it, and it doesn't work that well on the pad. It didn't detract, from the enjoyment at all. But yeah, it's not by no means a perfect game. There's still some things I need to sort in that regard.
Yeah, stuff needs ironing out. The one that always got me was, so you have your character has like abilities and stats. It's really basic, but they are there. So there's little things like throughout the entire game in the top right, it was like upgrades available, and they weren't. And then also like when you would bring up the upgrade menu, which like overlays on top of everything else, unless you just press A immediately, not immediately, but like without pressing anything else, you can still select stuff that's behind the current menu.
Stick with the map, and I'm
so you're just like, what the fuck? Why is nothing working? Then you realise you're actually like selecting stuff behind, like you can't actually see. So there's little things like that that need working out. But yeah, no, I absolutely adore this, and I would recommend it to basically anyone.
Cool. Up so much, Sean, because if without that, I probably I maybe I would have bowled after hearing stuff now. But I only really wanted to play it because you were playing it. I was like, it'd be good to talk about it on the show. But like recent weeks, I've had Norco, which is a fantastic narrative experience. Now this, like 2 weeks in a row, it's been it's great.
Cool.
Nice. Okay, so Citizen Sleeper.